So one of the first things that I wanted you to notice was whenever Trooper Martin walks up, they're talking about that Bronco. There was another, like the captain said earlier, there was another vehicle that was with this white car that he stopped. And so that was a concern what the other vehicle was doing. So that's what Trooper Martin is asking Trooper Allen is, do you want me to go see if I can find that Bronco? He tells him no, and they continue dealing with that person. So once that happens, then you're going to notice that another individual comes up and walks up from the left, walking from the street, and walks up into the traffic stop. So we'll play it, and I'll tell you when to stop.
You live here? No, I'm helping him on his house. Oh, yeah? Yes, sir. I'm sitting up in my car. You got a license on me? Yes, we're going to. All right, go there. Can I help you, sir? Okay. Why don't you stand over there for me for a minute? No.
Okay, stop right there. Okay, so a new individual's walked up into the traffic stop. That's very concerning for troopers. This is something that all law enforcement around the country are taught because of the dangers of a traffic stop and because of the dangers of multiple people that we're dealing with at one time. So it's a highly volatile situation that we like to stay away from. We don't want to involve other people into this traffic stop or anything that's going on there. At this point, Trooper Martin has already used force twice. He's asked him twice to leave. Go back to the street, turn around and walk away. So he's already asked him 2 times. And the thing that I'll keep pointing out, and hopefully it doesn't sound redundant, this could have been over right here if the person would have complied with the officer's directions and turned around and walked away. Twice so far it would have been over with. So he chooses not to walk away. He chooses to engage the trooper. The other thing, and if you remember in the presentation that I talked about size and proximity. This individual is much larger than either of the 2 troopers. So we're dealing with a really big person, and we're dealing with somebody who's now in really close proximity. They've moved right up into that area that all police officers, again, around the country are taught is a very dangerous place to be in when you're standing kind of chest to chest facing somebody. So he's asked him twice to stop, to turn around and go back to the street, and again, there was no compliance with either of those 2 requests.
Go over there until we get done here. We'll be down here in just a second. I'm going out there inside the damn house. Sir, no, there ain't no reason to be like that, is there? Once you leave this, walk back over there in that street and you'll be all right. All right? Hey, can I come over there?
Okay, stop right there. Okay, so now Trooper Martin has asked him 2 more times to go back to the street. So we're somewhere around 4 times that he's verbally, asked him use what I would consider good verbal skills, asking him to go back to the street and not come any further. Now we have a situation though where, and the person who's walked up into the traffic stop, he's talking to somebody else that's up at the house, the homeowner or somebody who's standing up at the house. Again, one of the first evaluations that we have to make is what are the troopers doing and is what they're doing legal? Is the traffic stop legal? I think that's an easy question to answer that it is. Is it legal for a trooper during that traffic stop to tell somebody that they can't come up into their traffic stop and walk up while they're conducting official business? And of course, I believe the state law is very specific about that is reasonable for us to be able to do that as well. Now, the person walks forward and actually makes contact with the trooper. He tries to walk in between the 2 of them, and Trooper Martin has said that he bumps into him whenever he walks through. So now we're even getting into that assault and battery, that non-consensual touching that we talked about, or that intent of it might be a non-consensual touch that could be considered harmful. So now we're worrying about how aggressive is this person going to become as he's trying to move in between the 2 troopers.
What I'm asking you to do is go back over there. Now, are you going to be here? What do you do?
Okay, let's stop it right there. If you notice, Trooper Allen has grabbed a hold of the forearm of the individual. He had a hold of his arm. And what both troopers have talked about whenever we reviewed this with them is the demeanor of this person. Couple of things. One of the big deals was that whenever Trooper Allen reached down and grabbed a hold of his arm, he said the guy looked down at his arm and then looked up at him in what he felt was a very aggressive manner, and then looked down at his arm again and was pulling away from him in a way that would seem that he doesn't want him holding on to his arm. So he's staring at him, and those are all indicators that we train law enforcement around the country again, that those are high danger signs. Those are things that you need to be aware of and recognize that this situation could become, you know, even more violent as we go through it. Okay, stop right there. So at this point, Trooper Martin has pulled out an expandable baton. That's a department issue baton that we've issued since probably the early 90s. Those types of expandable batons that can be worn on your belt. He pulls the baton out, and the baton is a collapsible type baton. It's in 3 sections that you can expand it, and it's about 24 inches in length once you expand it out. He expands the baton, and again, what we've found is the question that we ask is it reasonable for Trooper Martin at that point to take his baton out of the holder and expand it? We feel that's quite reasonable. Again, we're dealing with a large subject. We're dealing with somebody who obviously is not going to comply with verbal commands. Again, he could have left numerous times, and now he's walked in between them, run into him. He's pulled his arm away from them. He's given them gestures and things that are very concerning to him. So Trooper Martin expands the baton. He doesn't strike with the baton at first. He's expanding the baton, which is also something that the courts have kind of tried to tell law enforcement. If you have time, show what type of force a person is going to encounter if they don't comply. It's kind of like giving a verbal warning. He's already given several verbal warnings. The guy didn't comply. So now he's taking out his baton. He didn't immediately strike him, but he's showing the guy, hey, you're not complying with me. I'm going to use my baton if you don't comply with me. So let's go on from there for a minute.
We're going to do this the easy way or the hard way?
Okay, stop. What both troopers have talked about at this point is that Trooper Allen is hoping to go behind the guy, standing up, walk around behind him, get both of his hands behind his back and cuff him. They've made the determination now that there's been a violation of law. This guy's not obeying their orders. He's not leaving. He's interjected himself into police business where he didn't have a place to do that. So he's in violation. Trooper Allen is going to pull his hands behind him and hopefully cuff him. As he walks behind him and pulls his hands behind him, the guy starts leaning his weight back toward Trooper Allen and pushing him backwards. So he's moving him backwards. One of the things that all police officers around the country and around the world are taught, and it isn't just for police, it's for law enforcement, it's for nurses and hospitals, for teachers. If there's an assault and that assault goes to the ground, chances of serious injury escalate dramatically. You don't want to be on the ground fighting. We teach ground fighting. We've done it for years, but the main gist of our ground fighting is you don't want to end up on the ground rolling around and fighting with somebody, especially when they're much larger than you are. So Trooper Martin, he's now really concerned that this guy's pushing backwards and they're going to fall on the ground and it's going to turn into a fight on the ground. So at that point, go ahead. Okay, stop. At that point, Trooper Martin makes a single strike to the thigh of this guy's leg. The area that he struck is what we call a primary target area. It is well documented around the world that is the #1 place that a police officer should use a baton strike, a first baton strike especially. Hopefully compliance will be gained from that one baton strike. And in this situation, that's what happened. He struck one strike to his leg. Trooper Allen was able to not fall to the ground, get out from behind the guy and turn him, and they're moving him now into a handcuffing position. So he was able to take him on down to the ground, and which is where they have to end up, even though we don't want to fight on the ground. If you're going to handcuff somebody who's resistive, a lot of times that's where you have to handcuff them, is on the ground. Okay.